Good evening. I'm Dave Tubman. I'm the author of the book Jimmy Hoffa is Missing the Gap, which was first published in 2020, and July 30th was the release date. I did upgrade it this last July 2022 and made some typographical changes. There was a correction or two, and I added a few images, which includes the letter that I got from the Hoffa family, both Barbara Ann and James P. Jr. I sent them each copies of the book, and they read it and thanked me for it. And it was after Chucky O'Brien had passed on February 13th of 2020 that I even thought about putting this information into a book. The information was passed along to not only the authorities, a couple of investigative reporters, and both the Hoffa family, and as it turned out, the O'Brien family, before making this public. So I feel like I did the right things in the order it was supposed to be done, and was frustrated by the book, the movies, the different rumors, thousands of different tips, over 100 people that claimed they killed Hoffa. And this is eyewitness news, which is not a theory. It's actual information, facts that come from two eyewitnesses that tell what they saw, kept it a secret for safety reasons, family safety, not my dad's personal safety. And once the FBI started publishing the information that they had the driver, they had the car, and they knew kind of the direction they were going to go with the investigation, that my dad felt like he was off the hook. He no longer had to bring his story forward and chance retaliation from still pretty active and violent mafia at the time. 1975. They still have, as a matter of fact, the Detroit Partnership is still active, maybe not on the same scale as it was back then, but so I'm going to moderate the book and give some opinions. There will be more. I've requested my contact from Central Sanitation to answer a few questions that aren't addressed in the book. And I also have some new information that unfortunately I didn't get into the book, which is the actual location of Central Sanitation from 1975-76, when it burnt down on February 27th of 1976. And they ended up replacing it with a detention facility called the William Dickerson Detention Facility. And they changed the name of the street, which is why you can't look up 8215 Moran Street, Hamtramck. There is a location in Detroit with that address, but it is not, after all, the one I thought it was. So I'm going to give a map which shows the actual location of where that facility was back in 1975, and I'll confirm that with my contact. So let's go to the book again on page 147. This is about the garbage truck. This is a standard garbage truck that Ken and Francis Tubman saw that was parked within feet of the maroon Mercury when it came to a stop and extended out at 2/3 of a car length from the southeast corner of the Raleigh house. Just off to the right, facing Telegraph, with the driver still in the driver's seat, was a parked garbage truck. But it was not the type of garbage truck that picked up 8-foot by 8-foot by 20-foot bins, which is what was placed at the northeast corner, the far end of the Raleigh House building. And their pickups were scheduled for Friday, and this was a Wednesday, so it was unusual on several accounts why this truck was sitting there waiting for the Mercury to arrive. So just so you know, it was Tri-County until 74, and that's when business records indicate that Ronald Roxborough's, the son of George Roxborough, who was with Local 299, was a managing partner with Peter Vitale and Quasarano. Another thing that I'm looking into right now, which I'll confirm with you, is whether or not they even had an incinerator. My contact that worked there tells me that they didn't, although the FBI says that they took out a loan and installed an incinerator there after Central Sanitation took over from Tri-County. But I'm starting to believe I do have some other articles that back up my contact's statement that there was no incinerator. He doesn't know why people say there was. And he told me, what difference does it make when you have the trash compactors and the shredders that would have turned any body into particles to begin with. And then, of course, the fire on February 27th of 1976. You could call that incinerating, but the mob with Vitale and Quasarano did have a nearby incinerator as well. But because the two buildings that burnt down in February of 76 were not searched by the FBI, there were no traces of any remains, even if it had been shredded and compacted. It would have been disappeared. There would be no trace left after the fire. And my contact was in charge of the fire cleanup. So I'm going to kind of lean towards that as possibly the ultimate demise for James Hoffa Sr. So on page 148, of course, varying stories saying the FBI had a search warrant and didn't execute it and were about to. And so the owners of Central Sanitation decided to burn down the two buildings where the shredder and compactors were located. But here's another opinion from an expert. It's James Buccellato. I think I butchered his name. James Buccellato. He's a senior lecturer in criminology at Detroit's Wayne State University. He's an author, and he hosts the Original Gangsters podcast. And he says he doesn't buy the stories that Hoffa's body was shipped back to the East Coast or even to the suburbs of Detroit. He believes whatever was done was within city limits, which would include Hamtramck, of course. And he did have conversations with the FBI back then. And, you know, I do trust a lot of the original conversations, not so much recent, people like the FBI and stories that are hearsay nowadays. They kind of reinterpret the original information. Some of these people just weren't born then. They have a whole different perspective, and they're kind of tainted by all the theories, the movies, the books, and everything that's come out, to where they kind of have a conclusion and then they look for information to fit. So that is a different approach, and that's why I held off on my personal opinions pretty much till the end of the book. I wanted the story to be presented without that, and then I go through and I do offer an interpretation based on what I've learned. But you're free to take the story, reject it. As far as what Ken and Francis Tubman saw, that's entirely up to you. And you can add back whatever other theories that you feel comfortable with. But I'm going to stick to my original script as far as what they saw. I believe is 100% factual. And hopefully you've seen blog number 11 where you see Francis remembers almost all the details from that day back in 1975, when she was just 58 years old. But Buccellato believes the body was most likely cremated in a mob-owned incinerator just miles from the restaurant where Hoffa was last seen. So that kind of varies from what my contact information tells me. I believe it was Central Sanitation involved. I believe if the FBI went to the Raleigh house based on a different, as it turns out, false lead of the body being thrown in at midnight, as I told you, they could only access that dumpster from inside the restaurant. So that proves that was a false lead. But if they had, I don't know why they didn't, if they had interviewed all the truck drivers from Central Sanitation, and they did talk to Roxborough, and he says that they did not interview a single truck driver. And that just doesn't make sense. Even if it was, like their 2 visits to the Raleigh house indicated, thrown in the dumpster. They should have interviewed at least the bin truck drivers that would have picked up that bin. Although there were 4 pickups between the time of the abduction, 4 Fridays, and the time they first arrived, which was on the 22nd. I believe that was a Friday. And if they had talked to them, they're young. There would have been young drivers driving the truck, and it is possible that maybe those drivers are alive today. I was 24 at the time. It's quite possible that could have been the approximate age of a driver of a garbage truck. If they were not connected or a trusted member, that they would have been told to stay in the truck. We got it from here, and go from here to the facility. They would have done everything from behind the truck without his knowledge, maybe. Sure, they could have had somebody connected driving the truck, but I don't think they needed to do that. I think they would have just had a regular employee do that. There's a lot of people that worked there, including my contact, that was not connected to the mob. They knew them all. They were treated well, and were not told to do anything illegal. That's my understanding of their approach with their employees. Now, the owners of Central Sanitation, the primary owners were Peter Bozzi Vitale and Raphael, or Jimmy Q. Quasarano. And both of them were known by the FBI to have met with Frank Fitzsimmons at Larco's, which is located in Corktown near the stadium, near Briggs Stadium or Tiger Stadium. And that would have taken place on July 26th of 1975. And coincidentally, that's the same day that Tony Giacalone and his brother Vito had met with Hoffa at the cottage to arrange that meeting at the Red Fox. That seems kind of ironic. And Fitzsimmons flew in from New York for just that one day and a half, from the 26th to the 27th. He left town again. He told the FBI that he had dinner at Carl's Chop House both those nights, but the manager of Larco's first said that he was there, and then he changed his story and said no, he was mistaken, he wasn't there. The manager of the Fairlane Inn in Dearborn testified. Now, this part isn't in the book, but I did run across the information. Page 150, chapter 9 is the conclusion. There's where I do start describing some of my own opinions as far as what's going on, or what went on July 30th. I'm recording this to insert at a place where I think is comfortable to watch in short segments. If it's over an hour, I've done this in 2 parts. So forgive me for stretching it out, but it's just easier to upload, easier to edit and put graphics in. It takes a day or more to do all that after I've recorded the audio and visual here, to go through and edit and put in additional graphics to help explain the story. So forgive me for doing that, but I think it's a lot better. You can. If there's any lag here between this blog 16 and blog number 17, it's only because it does take so much time to put together. So thank you for watching. This will be continued on blog number 17, and I appreciate your subscription, your following, sharing, liking, and so on. Please comment below. I really I kind of need some steering towards the end of the book here to know where we go from here. Thank you. God bless.
Well, let me tell you about the way